Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Let's bring the committee of the whole meeting to order for January 22nd, 2024. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Dene and Cree of the Port Nelson First Nation, as well as the Dunnizell of the Prophet River, and always recognizing the Métis and their participation in our community over the years. So please be advised that tonight's meeting is available for the public to attend virtually, is being streamed and recorded. Are there any council additions? Seeing none, are there any staff additions?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there any public online that would like to speak? No? Okay, are there any gallery? Okay. Everybody's okay with the agenda? Okay. So our first order of business is Lees and Associate here to talk about the design completion for the Art Fraser Park. Jonathan's here. Welcome. And I see we have Heidi, Ivy, and Patrick online. Welcome, everybody. Jonathan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and Council. So for tonight, we wanted to bring forward our 50% completion. We've been working with Lees and Associates to design upgrades for the Art Fraser Park. And we've progressed to this point now, and we thought it was fitting time to bring it back to Council for feedback, discussion, those kinds of things, and mostly just to show you guys. So at this point, I will turn it over to Ivy, Heidi, and Patrick, and let them present.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and members of staff. My name is Heidi Redman with Lees and Associates. It's our pleasure to be here this evening to provide a progress update on detailed design improvements at Art Fraser Memorial Park. Our agenda today includes introductions, project overview, a summary of park improvements included in the detailed design, and finally, an update on the budget and next steps. We will have time for questions at the end. Our team includes myself, Heidi Redman, landscape architect and principal. Patrick Beach is the project manager. Ivy Smith is providing project support and accessibility expertise. Our subconsultant, McElhaney, is providing topographic survey, civil engineering, and structural engineering to support the detailed design. The overall project objective is to improve the park amenities and circulation to enhance visitor experience, accessibility, and community well-being. Art Fraser is one of the community's flagship parks, yet it does not currently provide a quality experience for users with accessibility needs. Upgrades are needed to the infrastructure to meet the current and future needs of the community. In particular, the playground and many of the amenities are not accessible to all users, and there have been public requests for better circulation within and around the park. There are a couple of key definitions worth highlighting in the context of this project. Accessibility, with respect to active mobility design in this project, means that people, regardless of their age, size, ability, or disability, are able to access, experience, and use the features and facilities. A barrier refers to a feature of a site, structure, system, or space that may prevent or limit someone's ability to fully participate in that designed environment. Today's presentation provides an update to Council on 50% completion of the detailed design. Our next step is to proceed with 95% drawings and issue for tender drawings, which staff will use to apply for grants and funding. Work is very much progressing, and we're meeting with staff every other week. Slide. Hand it over to Ivy.
Thanks, Heidi. So the conceptual design for Art Fraser Park was completed in 2022. This included 2 rounds of thorough engagement. In July 2022, we held a community pop-up event at Art Fraser Park and also hosted an online survey. We got a sense of how people use the park, what barriers they encounter, and gathered ideas for accessibility improvements and what people would like to see in the future. In September 2022, we hosted a second online survey, and we spoke with about 100 individuals during another community pop-up event held as part of the Street Festival. This round presented two concept options for improvements at Art Fraser Park and confirmed community priorities. The engagement process also included First Nations outreach. The project was introduced by Northern Rockies staff during in-person conversations with representatives from Fort Nelson First Nation and Prophet River First Nation. And Northern Rockies staff also reached out in person to Northern Rockies Aboriginal Women's Society and Fort Nelson Aboriginal Friendship Society. Key takeaways from engagement about Art Fraser Park included concerns regarding the proximity of the play area to the parking lot. People were concerned about the lack of buffer and barrier between the playground and parking area. There were also requests to include accessible play equipment and play surfacing. Another popular request was to include more shade throughout the park. We also received feedback asking for more walking opportunities, accessible trails, and looping trails with marked distances. Other suggestions included adding accessible picnicking opportunities. So next we'll walk through how we are responding to these community priorities and provide a summary of key improvements that are being designed for the park. So one of the most exciting proposed improvements is the new playground equipment and surfacing highlighted in green here. You'll remember that the accessible play equipment and accessible play surfacing were highly requested during the engagement. And there are a few accessible features currently at the playground, including the accessible bucket swing. However, the playground as a whole is not fully accessible, primarily due to the sand surfacing and the timber curbs, and as well as the lack of diversity of types of play equipment. Additionally, the last playground safety audit commissioned by the Northern Rockies in 2020 found that the majority of equipment was in poor to fair condition and in need of replacement soon. So the new playground follows universal design principles and will include 3 levels of inclusive play: ground level activities, elevated level activities, and multi-level activities. This image shows a rough layout of the play area. The green color indicates poured-in-place rubber surfacing that is fully accessible, and the light brown indicates engineered wood fiber material offering more challenge, but can still be accessed by many. The light gray shows a buffer for fall zone for the play equipment. We are aiming to create a variety of play opportunities for all ages and abilities in the new playground by providing opportunities for robust active play, full body motion, imaginative play, and playing with other kids. So the universal carousel shown here is one of the play features that also happens to be accessible for people using wheelchairs. It's designed for people ages 2 to 12, but offers fun for all ages. Some other play features include the group swing, which allows multiple kids to swing together, testing out balance skills, turn taking, and cooperation. And the garden seesaw can be designed to include different animal shapes, including local animals such as wolves, caribou, beavers. The rocking motion attracts all ages to play and provides a range of skill levels. More adventurous kids can stand in the middle and balance. A play structure offers various opportunities for climbing, crawling, jumping, and balancing. And a new swing set offers updated swings and a space to reuse the existing accessible bucket swing. We've also included features that offer sensory play alone and with other kids. So the music panel and percussion station offers music play for younger kids 6 months to 5 years old, and a tree house offers the opportunity for some imaginative play. The mini pump track takes advantage of the existing forest setting by providing an opportunity for kids to ride amongst gentle terrain in the trees. This track will be designed for younger children and include a few loop options as well as a straight path for practicing. In response to public comments asking for more shade in the park, we've proposed adding 3 new shade structures. The shade structures include shade sails within the spray park area, a second picnic shelter to match the existing picnic shelter, and a pergola with seating. To increase walking opportunities in the park, we've proposed a looping walking trail with connections to other trails and sidewalks off-site. Additional lighting could be added to the outside of the ball field fence for trail illumination during the darker months. And a clearly marked crosswalk connects the north and south parts of the park. Winter programming includes a proposed skating rink and loop within the ball fields. Skaters could use the dugout to tie up their skates, and decorative lights could be added to the field fences to create a fun winter atmosphere.
I like it.
The improved park signage will help visitors feel welcome in the park, revamp the aesthetic of the appearance of the park, and also provide information about what amenities the park provides. So I'll hand it off to Patrick now.
Thanks, Ivy. So the final improvement we are showing today is the addition of a new lawn area where the current parking lot extends north. You can see the green oval on the top of the screen. This new green space responds to concerns we heard from parents during engagement about the proximity of the playground to the parking lot. It creates much more space between cars and children using the playground, as well as making room for an open space for unstructured play, like throwing a ball or picnicking and events. This change would also help make room in the park for the other proposed new amenities, like the shade structures that Ivy just mentioned. So this reorganization, which addresses the area shown in the image at the bottom of the slide, would result in about 6,300 square feet of new lawn in between the playground and the proposed northern edge of the parking lot. To replace the stalls that would be removed for green space, and overflow parking area with 25 stalls would be constructed at the southeast corner of the park, which you saw on the previous slide. Factoring in the loss of the stalls to the crosswalk, there would be a net loss total of about 1 to 2 parking stalls. So because relocating parking is such a significant change to the park, we are seeking council's feedback and guidance while we're still relatively early in the design process. Other options for the park include keeping the existing parking lot as it is and omitting the overflow parking. This would require, of course, not adding the proposed green space and might limit the other amenities that were from the design that were able to fit in the park. And there would, with this option 2, no impact on parking. A third option would be to keep the existing parking lot as it is, but add the overflow parking. This would also mean not adding the proposed green space and would see about 25 stalls added to the park. The drawing on this slide shows the design for the overflow parking area in a bit more detail. Next slide. So the total estimated cost for the proposed improvements is roughly $1.6 million, including contingencies. The largest budget item is the playground, roughly $418,000. And that includes all the new features that Ivy just mentioned, surfacing and disposal of the current playground. The next largest item is the overflow parking lot at 315,000. And that includes the surfacing as well as stormwater system connection. So as Heidi mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, our next submission will be the 95% detailed design package, followed by tender ready drawings, specifications, and updated costing after another round of staff feedback. After that, it'll be over back to Northern Rockies to explore grant opportunities such as the Destination Development Fund that is supporting upcoming improvements to Andy Bailey. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you very much for having us here today. And we're happy to join Jonathan and staff in answering any questions.
Thank you very much, Lee's team. At this point, I would like to turn it over to council for any discussion, feedback, questions that you may have for myself or the team.
Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks, folks, for that presentation. It was good. I like the initial overview. The 1.6 million scares me a bit, but you know, potentially there's that opportunity to get grant funding for this sort of thing. It appears to me that area is a bit of a problem, eh? So we're trying to figure out parking in order to add something. I've never liked that parking lot myself, but there needs to be parking, and then, you know, there's not a lot of room over there unless you're walking a pile, you know, of distance to get there. So it's a conundrum. I wouldn't know what to do about the parking. And I'm interested if any of the other councillors have any thoughts with respect to that or any other things, questions to council or from council. Councillor Roper.
Maybe it was there, but I didn't see it. Is there a cost implication between the three different choices for the parking and the green space?
It was on the sheet. I can't remember the exact numbers from the budget slide. The cost of the new parking area down at the lower corner of the Ball Diamond, I believe, was around 300,000, if I'm not mistaken. And then the removal of the existing parking area and installation of grass was, I believe, around 1,000.
Okay, so the 1.6, does that what option is that?
So that is the full project. So that includes removal of parking, installing of the new parking.
So there is potential to save some depending on the option that we decide.
Yeah, for sure. And recognizing that that is a big expenditure and also a pretty big change to the park. So that's why we felt it was pertinent to come and speak with you guys and kind of see what directions and how you guys were feeling.
Gotcha. Thank you.
As an active user of that park, and especially with little children, you know, when you're going to ball and there's a million cars parked in there and we're taking little people there, as I don't even want to park in there. I park over at the Elks and I walk over because I don't want to hit anybody. And those kids are running, trying to get to ball, right? And there is no sidewalk. There's no safe space to get them either to the play structure or to the Ball Diamond where they're doing soccer and they're doing ball. There's no safe way to do that. So yeah, no, I believe, in my opinion, if we're going to invest money in upgrading this park, that we should move that parking lot first and foremost, like to make it a safe space.
In its entirety.
In its entirety, yeah, like they said. And if that, I think I'm clear of where the parking would be, but is that where everybody, well, some people camp now? That's that piece, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I heard him say that we would only be losing one parking spot by moving it there. So, you know, I just think it's well worth every single penny that we spend on moving that parking.
Yeah. Yeah, so that, I guess that, so the parking, Patrick, is in the lower right hand. Is that the idea?
Yeah, so the as you see on here, the upper green circle is the section of parking that's closest to the playground. And so there's a bit of a loop there that goes around. So we remove the stalls on both sides of that closest to the parking, create just straight parking for two sides all the way down towards the washrooms. And on the lower right-hand corner, there is the additional 25 stalls that can replace the 26 to 27 that we would lose there, with access off of 55th Street.
And the gray area is actually a walking trail, so there's a sidewalk essentially from that lower parking up to the.
That's correct. So the lower parking area would be basically adjacent to that walking trail, so you can pick it up and follow the trail up to either the crosswalk, or if you're heading to Ball, or you could take the long.
And so the rectangle is you're leaving some parking there? The rectangle in the middle, so above the half circle, yeah, right, to the right of that, that whole section there.
Yeah, so that was all still staying as parking in this design, and then just removing the part closest to the playground.
Is there ability to take that parking right out of there? Could you replace it somewhere?
I don't know if we have enough space in the park itself. We may be able to relocate it somewhere else.
What would the design be then to safely get pedestrian traffic from that parking lot to the ball diamonds or the soccer field over there? Like how in this new upgraded plan, how do we safely move pedestrians?
So with this plan, the darker gray that you see is the walkway. And so part of the walkway now will come alongside of the ball diamonds. So if you walk from that parking lot up that way, you can follow along on the walkway. And then in the middle of the two parking areas within the center of the park, there's a crosswalk that they've built with, there will be some bollards, concrete bollards there to ensure that there's a space there where traffic will be slower and adequate crossing for people.
Okay, so sorry, may I?
Yeah.
Okay,
ahead.
so that green oval, so I'm sorry, you guys know I can't read maps, but so the green oval is going to be parking.
No, that's the new grass area.
That's the new
So
grass area. So
currently
the
that-
only parking you're leaving is that what, yeah, okay, gotcha. And then there's going to be a safe way to move from that parking to the ball diamond. Okay, yeah, I'm with you. Thank you.
Please, Councilor Dickey.
I have two questions. Thank you for the presentation. It's very exciting to see a conceptual drawing on this. But in talking about accessibility, what are the bathroom situation there? Like there was no discussion of accessible washrooms, or do we have that there already?
Yeah, the washrooms that are there are currently accessible.
Accessible. Okay, and the other thing is the design that we're doing out at Andy Bailey Lake and talking about Parker Lake, would the materials be matching? Like I think we should have a theme throughout all of our parks to make sure that they all look the same.
I'm gonna leave that one up to Patrick.
Yeah, thanks for the question. They're not currently for this park, we are matching some of the other features in the park, like the new gazebo will match the existing gazebo. With the playground features, a lot of them are wood framed, so they'll tie into some of those wood framed structures at Andy Bailey. Some of the other things that would match are the picnic tables, which is a model, which is a design that Northern Rockies developed with a local fabricator. That's going to be duplicated at both parks. I think the waste receptacles are also matching, but there's certainly an opportunity to explore harmonizing the two designs further.
I think that's really important that it kind of matches, because when we start talking about beautification and wayfinding signs and things like that, that throughout Fort Nelson, they kind of all float. When you come into the Iska Lake Banff or whatever, that when you go in there, you can really feel the cohesiveness of the community. The other thing is only kind of a recommendation is the Rotary and BC Tire Association, they will fund rubber matting for playgrounds. So I think that might be an option to cover some of the cost.
Awesome. Thank you, Counselor.
Are there any other comments? Councilor Next?
Great presentation. It looks fabulous. Just a quick question about the new parking. If they were to put the new parking down on that corner, that's the way the balls go. So that fencing will be quite high to prevent any vehicles from being hit.
It's a little difficult to see on this drawing, but there is a little darker section on the fencing there. That is protective netting
Oh,
that
okay,
will go on the fencing to ensure that the vehicles are.
perfect.
Councilor Roper, please.
One more question. Can I just get a refresher on some of the grants that are available for the project, how we might be able to offset the costs?
So this is completely at the design phase, and we haven't explored any grant opportunities so far. So I welcome the mention of the one for the tires or any others as well. The goal with this one is to basically have a shelf-ready project so that any grants that we find or become available, that we are ready to apply for them and take advantage.
Great. And do we have a general timeline of when we think that we might be able to complete the project if things kind of align and grants become available? What are we looking at?
I don't have any sort of timeline right now. It's completely fun. So if it's something that we really wanted to push ahead right away, we could potentially put it in budget as soon as 2025. But again, I'm thinking we would want to look for and explore as many grant opportunities as possible to ensure that we can fund as much of it as we can that way.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, there it is.
I think it's working now. Can you guys all hear me?
Yes, thank you.
I was just curious if consideration's been given to using the west side unpaved parking at the rec center as additional parking for Art Fraser. We could add a little bit more connectivity. There's already crosswalks across the highway. I'm wondering if any of that's been considered. I know it's not ideal to cross the highway for a park with kids and everything, but an option, I'm thinking.
If I'm not mistaken on that one, that is part of the overarching goal of the connectivity, so that the rec center, being one of the big hubs with a larger amount of parking, could be used for any additional overflow parking that is required at the park.
Yeah, it would just take wayfinding and signage, right? To let people know overflow parking, et cetera, et cetera. Do we know who owns I suspect that line at the bottom is a lot line? The black line across there, is that a lot line? Do we know who owns that next piece of park? Do we own it? We don't own it. Okay. But we do know that there's somebody who owns it. Okay. Is there buildings there now? Oh, that's the back roads, right? Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe there's a road allowance there as well, because that may be hard to see, but it comes straight off there with the road that goes along towards the public workshop. And then it's back roads just past that.
Hmm. So there may be potential to expand that park over top of that road allowance if you have it delisted. Okay. Good. Anybody else? No? Well, yeah, can we get a copy of the presentation? Councillor Goering is asking for a copy of the presentation. Okay, good. Okay, well, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Council.
Okay. Next on the agenda is Committee of the Whole Reports number 324, Human Bear Conflict Public Engagement Session.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The report presented to you today is presented to facilitate some discussion based on some of the takeaways from the November public engagement session, and to seek further guidance related to the enhanced bylaw enforcement, community education, and Bear Smart community status, which are some of the points that were noted during that engagement session as well. I'll toss it back to you guys for further discussion on this.
That's it.
Short, sweet.
Well, seems how there was only 7 people there, I guess. That's it.
Eight. I think it was 8.
Yeah, I counted 7 people that weren't paid to be there. Not including us, and I was extremely disappointed with the turnout, and asked people who chomped at me all summer about bears, why they weren't there to give their input. And you know, lots of them said, well, I would have got that from the newspaper, or you know. So again, it was one of the ideas that one of the situations that prompted me to think of a community newsletter to just get that information out when we can in a timely manner. And so as I said, I was disappointed with that. A couple of things that didn't go in the report that were brought to my attention is, you know, what if we considered a tipping fee and reducing that tipping fee or eliminating it so people could take their excess garbage to the dump. Another one was, if you've got families that have consistently excessive amounts of garbage, whether it's because they've got a couple of babies and a whole bunch of diapers or whatever, potentially giving them a second bin. And of course, there was 3 or 4 people that I talked to that talked about enhanced bylaw enforcement. There's no doubt about it. That was from the people that were there. They thought that was something that we should be doing. I don't know for myself personally if I could call that public engagement, you know, of a sufficient level where I would want to start changing policy based on it. But it certainly is input, and I thank you for your report. Other councils? Comments, please.
Yeah, I think that it's really, really important that we continue to go down the road in terms of enhanced bylaw enforcement, in terms of our solid waste. I'm not sure why we have bylaw if we're not going to enforce it. We know it's leading to problems within the community. And I think that past councils have voted to actually start fining people after the first or the second warning or whatever it happens to be of the day. I don't know that we ever got to that, but I would be in favor of certainly doing that. I understand that we have a capacity problem as well, and so what that all means, I don't know. I want to continue on the road of a Bear Smart community, and I want to continue supporting the Wild Safe Community Coordinator program.
So do you have any ideas from an enforcement perspective? What are you thinking, increasing the enforcement with existing personnel, or are you thinking about hiring somebody? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, my thoughts would be, I don't know that we need a year-round bylaw enforcement officer. I think we could conduct a pilot and have a seasonal contract position to see how it even goes over. Like, would it be best to use somebody in our community, or would it be best the first couple of years when we're handing out those fines to have a contract position that leaves the community and doesn't have to bear the brunt of the unhappiness that fining community members might bring about? So I thought, or I wondered if the first couple of years that it wasn't a contract position, kind of using it as a pilot model and just see where it goes, because we really don't know, right? We really don't know.
Okay, other thoughts? Councilor Wilbur?
Yeah, I don't know how fining residents will be received. I would rather explore avenues to help our residents become compliant if they're not. Like, let's say someone has a fruit tree in their yard and they don't care or want it. Maybe there's some way we can help get rid of it so that they don't have to worry about it. Things like that. You know, I mean, we can find them. It might not help. It might just create some division in the community. But on the other hand, we should be enforcing our bylaws, and there should be repercussions for infractions. I think there's going to be a balance of those two things, but I think we're going to find that, some people are just not in a position to become compliant. They might need a little bit of help from someone. So
I have
Counselor Nick.
just a couple comments. Will this report be shared with the community somehow? I know there was only 7 participants or very few participants, and I don't think there's maybe enough communication with the engagement side. And then the other thing is I really do support the Wild Safe Community Coordinator Program and the Bear Smart program. And then I really believe that uplifting good behavior rather than fining somebody, but really highlighting the members in the community that are doing it right, rather than highlighting the few people that are doing it wrong. And I don't agree with community members that, yes, they cause a big stink, but out of 3,500 members, there might be 2 or 3 that cause a problem, but the rest of them are doing it well. So I think we need to maybe be promoting good practices that we have in the community, and maybe the other people will take a turn.
So your point is more education and highlighting the positive. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think the person who suggested that, if a family is constantly using more bin space for whatever reason, that, he suggested that, well, give them 2 bins so that they can fill it up and they're not overflowing and that sort of thing. But I think his real point was working with people who are having some difficulty. We might assume why they're having difficulties, but without actually engaging with them. And I don't know how much we've done with respect to engaging those particular people. I know that Kim has been, well, is warning's the right word? No, notices, I guess, right? That you give a notice and yeah, right. So you engage, yeah. So, maybe it needs to ratchet up to us engaging them somehow and taking that education perspective, which I suppose is increased enforcement. I'm just reluctant to go to fining yet. I know you all have been here longer than I have, that's for sure. But I know how fining has impacted other communities for other things. It's usually a huge hue and a cry, but I'm not ready to go to heavy-handed enforcement, punitive enforcement, I guess, yet. I'd still like to see us working with those people who are particularly having some difficulties. That's the way I would see it. I recognize, I also support the Wild Safe program because I think it fits with the education portion, and I could see that it would become frustrating, to continue working with the same. So maybe we do need to ratchet that up to some degree. When we can, I suggest that we move this forward to budget, because the preliminary, everything's got to be on the table this year with respect to budget. Preliminary budget shows that there's a, excessive amount of potential increase. I call it excessive, I mean large. Everything's needed, I suppose, but when you start talking about $1 million increase just for wages across the entire municipality, then we start talking about a lot of money that is on the table. So for me, I'd like to see us put this to the budget and see where it washes out with respect to all of the requests for money this year. But generally, I'm supportive of the program. Any other comments?
You have 2 councils.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Hands are up. Councillor Souls, please.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I stayed at home to keep my bugs here and not share them with you. So that's your, I'm being generous to you. Hey, I think you. Well, you're really welcome. Actually, good. I picked them up while you and I were traveling together down in Prince George. That's quite possible. But anyway, I had a fabulous
I don't know what
time.
places you were in, but I never got sick.
I stayed in my room the whole time, actually. No, not quite. Hey, just a few comments on this. First of all, I think that the balance between providing a system that manages to, the garbage bins and so on, we've been tweaking that over the years, and that's good. The recognition that there's the odd person that can't meet the requirements of can't or won't meet the requirements of bin management. I think those are things we can address. I agree it should be done moderately, gently, but there is a time where there is a more punitive form that could be exercised if needed. But I wanted to touch mainly on the public engagement, because when I read through the questionnaires that went into or to the various peoples who did respond, the questions themselves are based on some assumptions that we don't necessarily have to hold. The assumptions that it's okay for bears to live in your community on a ongoing basis was part of that question basis, that type of questioning. And so, of course, answers that come back in that type of a framework of questions will automatically support, to some degree, the assumptions that are there. And so I really think that as much as I appreciate WildSafe too, because there's actually a knowledge base that comes to the table with WildSafe and the practices that they promote and so on. But if you got bears that live in your community that everyone recognizes for year after year, who have a name and other things like that, I think it's simply negligent on our part to assume that that bear has a right to live there and take up residence in your community. The whole concept of us through WildSafe has been of recognizing what bear behavior is like and what how they affect communities is they present it to us as though it's natural to live in an area where the bears are traveling through, and we like it for them to travel through. And I agree, that's great. If a bear comes and visits and decides it's not a good place to live, it can move on. But I think that we're too friendly. We've gone too friendly with the bears, and we're too friendly with keeping them around when we know that they're taking up residence. So I think that didn't show up at all in the public engagement from the questionnaire point of view, because there's no room for that type of thing in that questionnaire. So I think we should accept the findings of the questionnaire as valuable information, but it's just incomplete.
Thank you.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Andrews? Councillor Andrews?
So he did relate, he relayed a statement because keeps freezing. So he did say that he thinks that engagement and education will always need to continue. Capacity is an issue, and bylaw enforcement has been a recurring theme over the years. Exploration of a bylaw enforcement education position needs to be explored. That's what he had planned to say, if he could say it.
Okay. Thank you. So I am hearing that there is general agreement that we should continue with the Bear Smart community approach, that there is agreement with respect to the thank you, the WildSafe coordinator in that position, that $6,000 is prepared to be moved forward into the budget discussions. I think more education needs to be done around attractants. I think, the garbage perspective, I think most of us are pretty much on the same page that it is a problem. I think for myself, there's a line that's crossed once you start telling people what they can do in their yards from the perspective of gardens and trees and enhancements and those types of things. So I think there's probably some work we can be doing on attractants to get people to understand the difference between the different types of attractants and what they should be doing. So I know we've been doing some of that kind of work, but obviously it hasn't been enough. And some people are concerned about us telling them that they have to pick their apples before they're ripe, just because the bear's in their tree, right, before they're ripe. So we need to do some work there. So that's what I've heard. have you got enough information to move forward with the budget discussion and the Wild Safe Coordinator position and the Bear Smart Committee?
Excuse me, I was just wondering more specifically around the budget part, what exactly would you like us to focus on for a budget piece?
Well, I think it needs to come to us as a special project and it'll be decided by council whether to go or not based on once we see the entire budget,
Okay.
right? It'll be a determination of what'll get cut and
Did you want-
what'll stay.
I'm sorry. Did you want inclusion of potential costs for a contractor for bylaw enforcement, things of that nature as well, or additional education?
It doesn't hurt. I suppose I didn't hear consensus around the hiring of a bylaw officer, but if there's time to put that in and pull some kind of a numbers together, a budget together, I guess with respect to that, we should see it.
Thank you.
Sure. Last comment.
Okay, so contract bylaw enforcement officer doesn't have to be focused on fining people, right? The fines were just mentioned because that's currently how our bylaw is written, right? So just want to make that point clear that by suggesting that we hire a contract bylaw enforcement officer doesn't just mean that I expect that person to be going out and fining everybody. There's a whole process that has to be gone through before anybody gets a fine. So it wasn't my intent to just blanket the community with fines. I think that current staff and the current Wild Safe Coordinator and the COs have done a tremendous job in educating all of us on being a bit more bear smart. And in my opinion, that there are a few people that aren't effectively dealing with their solid waste in some of the hot spots within the community. And, there's only so many times that somebody can go to your house. And if there's, what happens after that? So that was my point.
Thank you for that clarification. Anything else, Sean?
No, sir. That's everything. I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your report. There were no new business items. Is there anybody from the public or personal media? Is there anybody in the room? Seeing none, we will move to a closed meeting pursuant to section 91F of the Community Charter Law Enforcement. Thank you very much. We have come out of the in-camera session. There's nothing to report out at this time. So the committee of the whole meeting is adjourned. Thank you.